Also reacting now to the news of the new cabinet. Let's rope in ANC NEC member Zuko Godlimpi, who is also a member of parliament. Zuko, very good evening to you. What are your thoughts on the new national executive?
Good evening to you and good evening to the viewers at home. Well, look, the view of the ANC on the new national executive is positive because this is a product of quite an extensive and elaborate a period of trying to build a government of national unity. Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're still listening.
Okay. So that process that has taken us a period of a month where the ANC led the discussion with the other political parties to negotiate the terms under which this government would be formed has been quite an extensive and actually inspirational process on its own. Political parties were able to agree on a series of foundational principles that are going to be the cornerstone of this government, and that includes the respect for the Constitution and the supremacy of the rule of law, a commitment to transformation and redress, a commitment to the pursuit of economic growth, development, and redistribution. So because this is built around those very valid principles, it is quite commendable. We now have to give everyone who's been appointed the opportunity to prove themselves that they can actually commit themselves to those values and they can work on the basis of those principles. So the ANC is quite positive. It's inspired by the ability of the president to navigate the uncharted waters and produce this outcome.
And of course, I suppose the big question is how everyone's going to work together to make sure that they deliver on that mandate, more so as there's still not much clarity on the kinds of decisions that the clauses will apply. And of course, maybe questions around how much discretion will cabinet ministers from different political parties in the coalition have to manage their departments.
I think the context is that part of the discussions that was had leading up to where we are today included an extensive conversation about that. There was a proposal by some other political parties to consider the principle of sealed mandates. And that notion of sealed mandate is exactly to try to build a scenario where ministers from different political parties could potentially pursue completely different policies. But that was dispensed with quite easily, and the ANC insisted that would fly counter to the spirit of the Constitution and how the national executive ought to function. So what you are going to have a coherent cabinet as long as people appreciate that they've got to function within the permits and limits of the Constitution and the spirit of the Constitution. And if you read the statement of intent that was signed by all political parties for grounding the GNU, the policy framework that this cabinet has got to pursue has already been elaborated in detail there. And all political parties are going to have to abide by that principle to which they signed and then produce government programs. So there is no concern on our part that ministers from different political parties are going to operate in contradictory ways, because that has already been dealt with in the process that led us to the formation of the GNU. And the statement of intent quite clearly outlines how that process must be undertaken.
And do you think that the government can function effectively if both the DA and the ANC have to now agree before any meaningful decision is taken?
I don't know where that comes from. There is no such a requirement that the ANC and the DA ought to first agree before a decision is made. All decisions are going to be processed by cabinet in the manner in which cabinet generally functions. And as I say, the reference point to understand how this will be done is the statement of intent that was signed by all political parties, including the DA and the ANC. And that statement of intent clearly articulates the minimum program that this government is going to be working on the basis of. And that is going to be what the cabinet processes. So the false narrative that has been running for a while, that one party has a veto power and that there will be no progress if there is no agreement between two political parties, is wrong. It doesn't exist. It's not part of this conversation. The GNU is not a bipartisan pact. It is a multi-party process, and the processes by which policies are arrived at are already contained in there, and there is no veto power whatsoever. So progress is going to be on the basis of cabinet decision, in essence.
Very well. Thank you so much for weighing in there. ANC NEC member Zuko Godlimpi, who's also a member of parliament, also speaking about the new national executive.